Welcome to Handmade History.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sonia.
And today we are talking about polymer clay. But first, this episode is sponsored by Sculpey. Are you curious to try out polymer clay? Are you a polymer clay artist or enthusiast? We have a special offer for you from Sculpey, the original polymer clay company. Use code HANDMADE25 to get 25% off your entire purchase on Sculpey.com. If you aren't sure where to begin, Sculpey III clay is the perfect polymer clay for beginners. It comes in almost 50 colors and is easy to mold and shape into fun creations. You can also buy a multi-pack of Sculpey III clay, including sets of the classic colors, brights, pastels, and naturals. These sets are an easy way to get all the colors you need to get started. If you are an experienced polymer clay maker, then you know the variety of products Sculpey has to offer, from Liquid Sculpey to Sculpey Souffle, to all the tools you need to make beads, jewelry, sculptures, frames, dishes, and more. Visit Sculpey.com, that's SCULPEY.com, and use code HANDMADE25 for 25% off your entire order. Sculpey, where creativity takes shape. Thank you, Sculpey.
Thank you, Sculpey.
And now, on to the show. This episode was a suggestion by my son, so big thank you to him.
Yeah, great idea.
I had a Klutz polymer clay book when I was a kid, and I used up all of the clay that came with it, and I recently found it again. So I was looking through it, and there's a whole section on tiny food, and it looks so delicious and cute. I remember I also made a lot of complicated beads when I was using the book. Did you do polymer clay, Sonia?
Yeah, I mean, probably we had the same book, but those books were big in our house. Yeah. And I remember our other sister made me the little polymer food items for like my Barbies.
Oh, so cute.
I had that set. Yeah.
That's adorable. So let's get started. Sonia, want to kick us off?
So what is polymer clay? Polymer clay is not technically clay. Clay is very fine soil with particles that are less than 5/1000th of a millimeter in diameter. Polymer clay is a substance made by mixing a type of plastic, polyvinyl chloride or PVC, with a plasticizer and water to make it malleable. A plasticizer is a substance that makes things more pliable. Water is a plasticizer for natural clay. Polymer clay is finished by baking in the oven at a low temperature. It's often used to make beads and miniatures, but artists today use it for all types of sculptures and designs.
The Incredible Clay book, which is the Klutz book I mentioned at the top of the episode, was written by artists Sherry Hobb and Laura Torres and published by Klutz in 1994. In the introduction, the authors write, "Recently, polymer clay has become very popular for a number of good reasons. It bakes in a normal oven easily, permanently, and unshrinkably. It comes in a rainbow of colors. It's non-toxic, clean, and unmessy. And it's easy to work and shape."
The word polymer is a technical term that can refer to any natural or synthetic substance made of very large molecules called macromolecules. Natural polymers include a lot of different substances, from cellulose to quartz to proteins and nucleic acids. Glass, concrete, and diamonds are all polymers. Synthetic polymers are made by making long chains of simpler chemical units called monomers through chemical reactions. These long chains become the macromolecules. Another type of polymer that is very common is silicone.
So, who invented polymer clay? Sophie Rebender Kruse invented one type of polymer clay in Germany. She was born in 1904, and her mother was Kathy Kruse, a famous German doll maker. People were experimenting with early polymer clays as early as the 1930s in Germany. And Kathy Kruse used a byproduct of oil production to attempt to make doll heads, but it wasn't very successful. Sophie Rebender Kruse began experimenting with the product in 1941 when she was about 37. She added a plasticizer to it. As we mentioned, a plasticizer is anything that makes a material more malleable. However, the plasticizer that Rebender Kruse added was not water. These formulas are all proprietary, so we don't have a lot of specifics here. We know that Rebender Kruse experimented by adding different types of paste to the product that she had.
Ravender Cruz also added color and created kits for kids to use. She sold these in toy shops. She sold her clay kits under the name Fimoic, a combination of Fifi, her nickname, modeling, and mosaic. She liked to make mosaics out of this clay. Eventually, Ravender Cruz sold her concept to the pencil company Eberhard Faber in 1967. The company was acquired by Stettler, another pencil company, in 1978, and they sold the product as Fimo clay.
And in the 1970s, a company named Accent Imports began to sell Fimo here in the U.S. Accent Imports was started by the Schaub family, who immigrated to the U.S. from Germany. They received a package of Fimo as a gift from their grandmother back in Germany. Unemployed at the time, the Schaubs started Accent Imports and used their connections in Germany to bring Fimo to the States. Other polymer clays were also developed in Germany at this time, including Formello and Modello clay.
Polymer clay was also invented in the U.S. in the 1960s. Chemists at a company called Zenith were experimenting with using polymers as part of electrical transformers. They needed something to transfer heat. The compound that would become Sculpey clay was a failed attempt at this.
And there are two stories associated with the invention of Sculpey clay. One is that one of the chemist's daughters molded a lump of this clay into an elephant. Another is that the director of Zenith began experimenting with it. Regardless, Zenith created a company called Polyform and began selling the clay in 1967, coincidentally the same year that Sophie Ravender Cruz sold her clay to the pencil company. And this tripped me up so many times while I was researching. At first, Polyform clay was white, and the company sold it at craft fairs. Artisan crafters had to add their own colors using chalk or tempera paint. But in 1984, the company began adding colors. They also changed their name to Sculpey and grew into a major seller of polymer clay here in the U.S.
From the very beginning, artists and crafters were part of the target market for polymer clay. Polymer clay companies did demonstrations in art shops and showed and sold their product at craft fairs. At the same time, the product was also marketed to children. This is true of other art supplies. For example, both fine artists and children use watercolors, oil pastels, and crayons. In these cases, kids typically use a more inexpensive version of what fine artists use. Polymer clay is somewhat unique in that kids and fine artists use the same exact material.
Though there are different types of polymer clay available, the same stuff that came in my Klutz book was used by fine artists to create works that were sold in fine arts and crafts shows and even shown in museums. And I was thinking that natural clay is like this, Sonia. Beginners and advanced artists use the exact same clay, right?
Yeah.
You're a ceramicist?
Yeah, I mean, there's different clay bodies, but if you're using porcelain, you're all kind of using porcelain.
Cool. So, what can you make with polymer clay? Polymer clay is malleable, but it holds its shape very well after you mold it. You can slice it easily with a knife or a pastry cutter type tool, and you can add texture and detail by pressing objects or tools into the surface. You don't have to mix it with anything in order to use it. However, you do have to knead it at first to make it easier to work with. And one tool that is useful for doing this is a pasta machine. The idea of using a pasta machine was pioneered by Marie Siegel, an early polymer clay artist who started Clay Factory, a polymer clay studio, in 1984. And you run the clay through the pasta machine, and then it's temporarily flattened into sheets. And then you can more easily mold it into whatever you like.
A lot of polymer clay techniques have been developed since polymer clay's introduction just 50 or so years ago. One technique is called caning. This is when you create a design, usually a thick disc, with different colors of clay. This can be an abstract geometric design, or it can look like a face or animal or some other object. The Klutz book shows you how to make a ghost. Then you roll out the thick disc into a long, thin cylinder, a cane. You slice the cane into smaller discs, and each slice has the same design on it. You can poke a hole in these designs to make beads or buttons, or you can use the slices to decorate a solid bead. Elaborate canes are used to make millefiori-style beads. Millefiori is a term originally used in glasswork. It refers to elaborate, elegant glasswork beads made famous by glass artists in Venice. These beads are also made from long canes, just like the polymer clay version.
Another technique is molding clay around other materials, such as aluminum foil, which can be baked. Using forms like this can allow artists to make bigger objects that would be difficult to fully bake if they were on 100% polymer clay. And you can do many other things with polymer clay. One book, Creative Clay Jewelry, written in 1994 by Leslie Dirks, shows you how to transfer a printed image onto clay. And artists also incorporate other materials, including acrylic paint, metals like silver, and gold leaf.
Polymer clay had a big moment in the US in the 90s. It was popular with kids and with artists and crafters. People opened studios where they created unique jewelry. They sold at art shows and craft fairs. They taught classes and wrote books sharing techniques. People made jewelry, especially necklaces and bracelets with elaborate beads. They also made pins or brooches with complicated designs. Brooches were trendy at the time. People also made figurines and miniatures. So here are a few of the artists working at this time. So we mentioned Marie Siegel. She and her husband Howard ran clay factory in Escondido, California. Other polymer clay artists include Susan Kinney, who owned a studio named Suzanne in Asheville, North Carolina; Kathleen Amt, who sold work at the Torpedo Factory in Alexandria, Virginia; Patricia Cutso worked in Alameda, California; Myrna Cantor worked in New York City; and collaborators Janet Kruk, Aaron Larson, and Joshua Peters opened Crooked River Crafts in Lafarge, Wisconsin. This is just a handful of the people who are innovating, selling, and teaching about polymer clay.
Books and magazines played a big role in spreading techniques and a love for polymer clay. Nan Roche wrote a book called The New Clay, Techniques and Approaches to Jewelry Making that was published in 1991. It included 100 photos sharing jewelry and bead-making techniques. And before the internet, these types of books were the only way to learn about a technique not from a person. So 100 photos was a goldmine for enthusiasts. Ornament magazine also published some advanced how-to articles on working with polymer clay. And these resources allowed people to learn and experiment on their own. Nan Roche and another artist, Lindley Wanani, also established the first polymer clay guild, which was called the National Polymer Clay Guild.
Two polymer clay artists, Elise Winters and Rachel Karen, were instrumental in documenting polymer clay art and artists. Elise Winters, a former high school art teacher, ceramicist, and photographer, amassed a collection of over 2,000 pieces of polymer clay art. She photographed and cataloged over 500 of them. In an article in Craft Magazine in 2011 by Monica Moses, Winters talked about how important it was to her that polymer clay art be treated as a legitimate art form. She said that she wanted to, quote, achieve recognition for polymer artists, not only because polymer clay was art, but because then polymer clay artists could charge more and earn a living from their work. Winters herself began working with polymer clay in 1993 and advocating for it as an art form in 1997. She organized the Masters Invitational Polymer Clay exhibition and sale in 1997. She noted that the material, quote, started in the hands of hobbyists. As a ceramicist, she remembered how homemade pottery had been, quote, sneered at in the 60s before it was considered an art form. This drove her to reach out to museums about her collection.
Eventually, the Racine Art Museum in Wisconsin established a permanent exhibit of polymer clay art. Together, the museum and Winters raised more than $65,000 to fund the exhibit. Many of their donations came from polymer clay artists and were less than $500. Bruce Pepich, the executive director and curator of collections at the museum, spearheaded the acquisition, which contained 191 pieces. They also published a 130-page art book. Other parts of Winters' collection are in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the Newark Museum in New Jersey, and the Mingei International Museum in San Diego. Winters, along with Rachel Karen, also established the Polymer Art Archive, a website that documented polymer clay art. Winters passed away on January 1st, 2019, and Karen wrote a memorial post about her, calling her, quote, a force unlike any other in the history of polymer art. Karen continues to create polymer art and run the Polymer Art Archive, which includes numerous resources for polymer artists, researchers, and enthusiasts. She specializes in unique surface treatments of polymer clay, including using acrylic pigments, which bond permanently to the clay. She also silk screens and block prints on clay, and her techniques include, quote, layering, folding, and weaving, which produce a textile-like effect.
Now we'll switch gears and talk about two unique polymer clay artists. The first is actually a pair of artists who collaborate, Stephen Ford and David Forlano. A pair of Stephen Ford earrings actually first interested Elise Winters in polymer clay. Ford and Forlano met in Rome in 1984 when they were both in art school. David Forlano was making large, abstract paintings, and Stephen Ford made 3D art. Ford grew up in the Midwest and now lives in Philadelphia. Forlano grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia and now lives in Santa Fe. Ford was inspired to try polymer clay after seeing Millefiori-style jewelry. In 1988, they formed City Zen Cane, a polymer clay art studio where they made jewelry. Forlano said in an article written by Diane Daniels for American Craft, quote, "The jewelry business was only meant to make us money and give us time to paint, but gradually the process of making became more and more challenging, and we wanted to keep going."
They had a booth at the Philadelphia Museum of Art Craft Fair in 1990 where they sold jewelry, vessels, and picture frames. They've become most well known for their jewelry, which often incorporates silver and gold. They work with two metalsmiths, Marion Petrus Gilbert and Nicolette Absil, who is also an enamelist. And in 1999, they changed their studio name to Ford Forlano. They made an archive of their work in 2008, including hundreds of pieces, and their work has been published in books and is held in collections. They no longer sell at art shows. Ford said, "Now it's possible to make larger pieces that don't always have to be wearable." Their art is natural looking, even though it's technically made out of plastic. They have a bubble necklace in a collection called 500 Necklaces that looks like swirling silver-studded bubbles. They also have a gourd necklace where each bead is shaped like a gourd, decorated again with silver. Daniels wrote in her article about the pair that, quote, "part of their goal is to transform an inorganic, man-made material into something that looks as if it was found on the beach or growing in the woods." And on their website, they write, quote, "We want our work to allude to things you've seen in nature, yet be compelling in its own right." And they used to share a physical studio, but now they actually send their work back and forth to each other from Philadelphia to Santa Fe.
Finally, we are going to talk about polymer clay artist Yuka Mori. Mori is a Japanese designer and artist whose polymer clay art focuses on figures, especially animals and creatures. She has designed 212 Pokemon cards that feature her polymer clay Pokemon. Mori grew up in public housing in Tama City, Tokyo. On her website, she writes, quote, "Her personality was mainly shaped by Ogamu Tezuka's manga and the programs on Tokyo Channel 12. Tokyo Channel 12 seems to be comparable in programming to our PBS stations." Mori studied at Kuwasawa Design School and GU University. She also attended Tokyo Zokei University Grad School, where her thesis was, "What does kawaii mean to Japanese people?" Mori received awards for her clay work in 1990 and 1993. She was the winner of Tokyo TV's Clay Craft Championship in 1996.
Mori founded her company, Yuka Design, on January 1st, 1999, and it now has 2 employees. Her first Pokemon card was published in 2000. Some of her early cards include Caterpie, Blissey, Quagsire, and Shuckle. Her polymer clay Pokemon are truly amazing, with detail and expression, and they are also very cute. They are photographed in natural settings like grass and puddles. Her Pokemon might be pictured hanging from an actual tree branch or standing on a brick sidewalk. And Mori has also done numerous other projects. She has illustrated books and English teaching materials, created a Play-Doh-like set called Nendo, and made kits and unique clocks. And in 2024, she created an art exhibit of 72 cat-shaped monsters. Each one was based on one of the, quote, 72 seasonal divisions of the Japanese calendar and brought with it a unique related blessing. And the gallery was open late to mimic cat behavior. She is also so cute. She has also recently released a cat game where the pieces are shaped like very adorable cats. So that is polymer clay and a few polymer clay artists. Sonia, what do you think?
That was so fun. We did polymer clay all the time growing up. And then
Yeah.
I forgot about it. So this is really cool to do a deep dive.
It's a 90s throwback for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then we had there were other Pokemon cards with another artist.
Oh yeah, crochet Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Yes,
Those are
I've started a collection now. I have some of the crochet ones. There's many fewer of the crochet ones, but I know there's 212.
Yeah, so you can start collecting.
Got a ways to go.
I always loved the cane style is my favorite. I love watching videos of people making that.
I was also wondering, remember slice and bake cookies?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know which came first, polymer clay caning
Yeah.
or slice and bake cookies, but I feel like they were both invented around the same time.
It's a very similar process. We should look into that.
Yeah. Perhaps one influenced the other.
Because people like make their own cookies like that too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We used to call those chop cookies.
Mm.
Yeah.
Crazy. They don't make slice and bake anymore. Well, they make them, they're like pre-cut.
Yeah, we call those place cookies.
I also want to see the 72 cat-shaped monsters.
Yeah, that was on her website. It's really cute. Well, I don't know if you can see all of them, but the cats that are in the game that she made are absolutely adorable. It's incredible how much expression you can get out of just like a few. Like she will just have an indent for each of the cat's eyes, and you can tell that it's like sleeping peacefully.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, Sculpey. Don't forget to use code handmade25 to get 25% off your entire purchase on Sculpey.com. Sculpey, where creativity takes shape.
If you have a question or comment or suggestion for an episode, you can email us at handmadehistoryhosts, hosts@gmail.com, or visit our website at handmadehistorypodcast.com.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Oh, this one's going to be tight, Sonia.